Welcome back to Monster Tamer, a 2D Pokemon-like RPG created for Phasers 3. Previously, we worked on updating our battle scene to have animated text anytime we display a message to our battle scene. If you missed the previous videos, there'll be links in the video description to the source code up to this point, as well as the complete source code for this video. There'll also be a link to the previous videos if you'd like to catch up. So let's get started. Alright, so our next thing we're going to work on for polishing for our battle scene is going to be animating our monsters. So what we're going to want to do is when our scene starts, we're going to have our monsters and our health bars animate onto the screen at the appropriate times. And we're also going to update them to have like a flash animation when they take damage. And then finally, if they faint, I will have them disappear off the screen. So for us to go ahead and do that, the first thing we want to do is let's go ahead and open up our source code and let's go into our battle monster class. So go to battle monsters, we'll go into our battle monster class. And so for our player game object, our monster game object, and our monster health bars, we want to hide those components when they appear on our screen. So what we'll do is let's come down to our constructor, and when we create our image game object, let's go ahead and call our set alpha method and set it to 0 right after we create our instance. Then what we want to do is we need to go ahead and go to where we create our health bar, and we'll want to go ahead and hide our container right after we create that as well. So we'll go ahead and call our set alpha method, and we'll go ahead and set that to 0. So now that we've hidden our game objects, what we want to do is we're going to want to add some methods to our base class here that we can go ahead and implement inside our child classes. And so this is where we'll go ahead and create our methods for the various animations that we'll want to play. So what we'll do is let's come up to where we have our other public methods. And so below take damage, this is where we'll add those in. So our first one is going to be play monster appear animation. And so this will be the one when the monster appears onto the screen. So we're going to provide a callback. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and throw an error if we call this method and it's not implemented. So then that way it's very evident for our other classes that we need to implement this. So what we're going to do is we're going to do throw a new error. And inside here, we're just going to reference our method name. And so we'll say play monster appear animation, and we'll say is not implemented. And then so what we'll do is let's go ahead and copy this block, and we're going to paste it 3 times, and we'll create our other methods. So in addition to having the monster appear, we'll want our monster health bar to appear. So we'll play monster health bar appear animation. Then we're going to want one for when the monster takes damage. So we'll go ahead and change this to play take damage animation. Let's go ahead and get rid of appear. And then finally we'll have the fainted animation. So we'll go ahead and name this play death animation. And let's go ahead and just update our error lines real quick. All right, so what we're doing here is for our 4 new methods, we are throwing an error, so then that way we can have our child class go ahead and override these parent methods, and then that way they'll have the logic that we need. And we expect those classes to implement these methods, and so this is one way for us to allow that to happen. And if somehow this isn't implemented, an error will be thrown when we call that method, for example, like on our enemy monster class. So then what we're going to do real quick is we'll go ahead and add in our type. So we'll go in and add in our JS doc, we'll have our param, and then so for our callback, this is just going to be a function that returns nothing. And then when we call this, we'll just do returns, and this will also return nothing as well. So then what we can do is let's copy this, we'll add it to each of our methods. We'll go ahead and save. All right, so now that we have our base methods in place, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and implement these in both of our classes. So let's go ahead and copy these 4 methods. And what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and open up our enemy battle monster class, and we'll go ahead and paste those in there. Same thing with our player battle monster class. We'll come to the bottom of our class, and we'll add those in. So then we're going to go ahead and we'll start with our enemy battle monster. And so for our play monster appear animation, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add a tween, and then that way we can animate our monster from off the screen onto their starting position. And so first to go ahead and do that, let's go ahead and get rid of our error. And first we need to define our starting X position. So we'll have start X position. We're going to set that equal to -30. Then we want to go ahead and define our end position. And so this is going to be our enemy position that we already have defined. So we'll have end X position, and we'll set this to enemy position, and we'll do our X value. And now we need to go ahead and update the position of our game object to be in that location. So we're going to go ahead and reference our phaser game object, and we'll go ahead and call set position, and we'll go ahead and do our start X position, and then we'll use our enemy position Y value. And then finally, the last thing we'll want to do is we'll want to go ahead and set our alpha when we call this animation. So we're going to do this, we'll do our phaser game object, we'll do set alpha, and we're going to go ahead and set this to 1. And so what this is going to do, this is going to make our game object appear, but it's going to appear off our screen. And so now we just need to animate it onto the screen, and we'll do that with our tween. So we're going to do this, scene, and we're going to do tweens, and we'll do add. And then let's go ahead and specify our delay. We'll set that to 0 milliseconds. We'll go ahead and do a duration. We're going to do 1600 milliseconds. And then we need to go ahead and specify the X property, which is what we want to animate. And so we're going to go from our start X position. We'll start at our start X position. And then we want to end up at, so our 2, and we'll have our end X position. Then we need to go ahead and specify our target. So this will be our phaser game object, of course. And then finally, we are going to add a callback. So we're going to do on complete. And we will go ahead and invoke our callback that was provided. All right, and so if we want to go ahead and test this logic, what we would need to do is jump over to our battle scene. And then we want to go ahead and come down to our battle state machine, and we'll want to go to our pre-battle info. And then so what we'll want to do, we'll want to go ahead and call our animation here. So we're going to go ahead and wrap all of our logic, and then this will be our callback that we invoke. So we're going to go ahead and do this, active enemy monster, and we're going to do play monster appear animation. And then for our callback, we will go ahead and invoke our logic down below. So we're just going to go ahead and move this outside of this logic here. We'll go ahead and save, and what should happen now is when our scene starts, we'll see our monster appears and then it animates across our screen. All right, so next what we need to do is we need to do the same thing for our health bar. So let's go ahead and get rid of our error. And then what we're going to want to do, we'll want to do some very similar logic. So we'll have a start position, and we're going to go ahead and use a tween to animate it. So I'm just going to copy this code block here. We'll go ahead and paste it. And for our X position, we're going to want to start at -600. We want to end up at position 0. All right, and then what we need to do is we need to update our reference. So not our phaser game object, it's going to be our phaser health bar game container. And so for our position, we'll go ahead and do our start position. And instead of any position Y, we're going to go ahead and do this. Our health bar container Y value. We'll update our alpha, and then we just need to change our target. And we'll go ahead and update our duration to be 1500 milliseconds, and we'll go ahead and save. And so if we want to test the animation for our health bar, let's jump over to our battle scene. And so after our monster appears, this is when we want to go ahead and animate our health bar. So to do that, we're just going to copy this line. We'll go ahead and paste it. And let's go ahead and wrap our code for our callback. And we want to do play monster health bar appear animation. And so in our game scene, our monster will appear, and then our health bar will appear. All right, so now that we have our two methods working for our enemy battle monster, what we're going to do is we're going to copy this logic over into our battle monster, and we'll go ahead and do the same thing. So let's go ahead and copy our logic for our play monster appear animation, and we're going to go ahead and paste that here. We'll also do the same thing for our health bar. So we'll go ahead and copy the logic in our method. We'll go ahead and paste that over. And then we just need to go ahead and update our values. So this is going to be our player position for our X value. And then we're going to go ahead and have our player position with our Y value. We'll update our alpha, and then we just need to go ahead and modify our value for our duration. And so our player monster is actually needs to only animate to about here, and so we don't need to take as long to have our monster appear on the screen. So then for our health bar, what we'll want to do is we need to go ahead and update our X position. So instead of being negative, we want to be positive because our health bar appears here. So we need to appear off the right side of our screen. So we're going to go ahead and change this to 800. We'll have our set position, we'll have our set alpha, and then finally what we're going to do is likewise we're going to bump this down because we don't have to animate as far, and we'll go ahead and save. So if we want to go ahead and test this logic, we just need to do similar to what we did for our enemy monster. We need to do this for our player monster. So if we come down to bring out monster, let's go ahead and paste our 2 lines, and it's going to wrap our existing functionality. And we need to go ahead and close our callback, and then close our other callback, and we'll go ahead and save. And now we just need to go ahead and update our reference. So we have our active player monster and our active player monster. Let's go ahead and save, and we'll test our changes. So we have our enemy health bar. Now we have our player monster. Oh, and then we have our health bar. So our health bar is in the wrong position. So let's go ahead and jump back to our code. Yes, so our end position, we don't want this to actually be 0. This needs to be our health bar container's current position. So let's go ahead and copy this. And we're going to go ahead and do that. And we'll do .x. So let's go ahead and save. We'll test our changes real quick. All right, so we have our player monster and then our player health bar. Nice. All right, so with those updated, what we'll go ahead and do is we're going to focus on our other 2 remaining methods. So we'll have when we take damage, and we'll have when we go ahead and faint. So what we'll do is in our enemy battle monster class, for our taking damage, what we're going to do is we're just going to have a tween, and basically we're going to modify the alpha on our game object. So let's go ahead and get rid of our error, and what we'll do is we're going to do this. We'll do our scene, we'll do our tweens, and we'll do add. And what we'll do is we're going to set a delay. So we'll set this to 0 milliseconds. Our duration will be 150 milliseconds. Our targets is going to be our phaser game object. And then what we need to do is we need to specify the property we want to target. This is going to be our alpha. And so we're going to start. So we're going to go from value 1, so we're fully visible. We'll also start from there. And for our 2, so this is what we'll end up, is at 0. And then we're going to go ahead and specify repeat. And what this allows us to do is we can tell Phaser to go ahead and repeat this tween animation a number of times. And so what it'll do is going to repeat this tween 10 times. So that's why we have a shorter duration. Is so then that way it's going to be like a rapid flash when we are updating our alpha. And so our last thing we want to do is we just need to go ahead and add on our onComplete property, and we will go ahead and call our callback when this happens. All right, and then so for our death animation, what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and animate our enemy game object off our screen. So we're just going to go ahead and copy our logic from our play monster appear animation down to here, and let's go ahead and update our values. So instead of our X value, we actually want to go ahead and animate the Y value. So we're just going to update our variable name. So we'll have our start Y position, and this is going to be our current game object's position. So we'll have our Y value. And then for our end Y position, what we want to do is we'll take our start position, and we are going to subtract 400 pixels. And then so that way it'll animate up off our screen where it's no longer visible. And we don't need to worry about setting our position or alpha because it'll be off the screen. And this will basically be near the end of our scene, and so we end up destroying the object anyway. And so for our tween, what we want to do is let's bump this to 2 seconds. And now we just need to update our values. So we'll have our start Y position, and we'll have our end Y position. And we will have our onComplete and our target. All right, so if we want to go ahead and test this functionality, what we need to do is jump over to our battle scene. And so in our battle scene, what we want to do is we'll want to come up to where our player does their attack. So if we come to our player attack method, then inside here, this will add in our logic. And so what we'll do is let's copy this line here, go ahead and paste it, and we'll go ahead and wrap that. And instead of doing the take damage animation, instead of doing the take damage method, we'll do our play take damage animation, and then we'll update our health. And then we just need to go ahead and get rid of our first argument, and we'll go ahead and save. And now for fainting, what we want to do is we'll come down to our post-battle check, and we'll do that logic there. So if the active enemy monster is fainted, then what we would want to do is we'll go ahead and play our animation. So let's go ahead and copy our line for our animation, and we will go ahead and paste that. And then likewise, we need to go ahead and wrap our logic. And we want to change this to play death animation. All right, so before we test, let's go ahead and do the same logic for our player monster. So if we come back to our enemy battle monster class, what we'll do is we want to do the same logic for our play take damage animation. So let's go ahead and paste that into the appropriate method. And then for our death animation, we'll go ahead and copy that logic. And we'll come down here, we'll paste that. And now we just need to go ahead and update our values. So for our start Y position, we keep the same thing. But then for our ending position, we actually want to increment so we go down off the screen. So we're going to go plus 400. And then so what we would do is we will go ahead and do our tween. We'll take the same duration and same values. All right, so then what we can do is let's come to our battle scene, and we will do the same logic in our fainting for our active monster. And so we just need to go ahead and update our reference. So this will be our active player monster. Let's copy this line here and come up to enemy attack. And so when the enemy attacks, and then so what we'll do is after our delayed call, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do our animation. So let's go ahead and wrap that. And let's go ahead and change this to play take damage. And we'll go ahead and save. All right, so if we want to go ahead and test, let's go ahead and come to the top of our file and let's bump up the attack for our player monster. Oh, we're still at 15, perfect. So what we'll do is let's go through our animations. And so we're going to go ahead and use slash. All right, we'll see our enemy takes damage. They disappear, but then they don't actually reappear. So we'll need to go ahead and fix that. Same thing for when they attack us. So let's come back to our code. All right, then what we need to do is in our callback on our onComplete method here, what we do is before we call our callback, we just need to update our alpha. So if we go ahead and grab a reference to our face or game object, and then what we'll do is we'll call set alpha, and we will bump this to 1. All right, so now if we go ahead and copy that, let's fix that in our player class as well. Go ahead and save, and let's go ahead and test again. All right, so we go ahead and attack. All right, so now we see our animation, we take damage. Enemy attacks us, we take damage. And then if we go ahead and make the enemy monster faint, and we actually animate our X value, so we need to go ahead and fix that as well. So let's jump back over to our code. All right, we come to our enemy battle monster class. Let's go ahead. Oh, yeah, we need to fix our property. So we need to target the Y value. We'll come to player battle monster, and let's go ahead and update that as well. We want to target our Y property. And then what we'll do is we'll come to our battle scene. All right, and if we want to go ahead and test our changes quickly, let's go ahead and go down to our battle state machine. We'll come to our player input state, and after we show the main battle menu, let's just go ahead and call our animations to make sure they're working properly. So we'll go ahead and do our active enemy monster, and we will do play death animation. And let's go ahead and for our callback, we will go ahead and do our active player monster, and we'll do our death animation. And for our callback, we won't do anything. So we'll go ahead and save. What we should be able to do now is once we get to that state, we should be able to test our animations. All right, and perfect. All right, and so what we'll do is let's go ahead and remove that code. All right, and so one quick optimization, what we're going to do is for our play take damage animation, this is the same for both monsters. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to take this logic and we're going to remove this whole method from both of our classes, and we'll put this in our parent class. And then that way we won't have our duplicated code. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. Go ahead and save and come to battle monster, and let's go to play take damage. And now go ahead and put in our logic. All right, so next what we're going to do is we're going to head and make a few optimizations to our code for when our animations and our text appear for our monsters. So right now, we wait for both our health bar and our monster to appear before we do some of our text. Instead, we want some of this stuff to happen at the same time. And likewise, we also want to clean up some of our code that we initially had for where we had our delayed calls, since we actually have our animations in place now. So first, let's go ahead and go into our pre-battle info state. And so what we'll do is we're going to have our we'll have our monster appear. Then we're going to go ahead and have our health bar appear, and we're going to have our text appear at the same time. So instead of having that be inside our callback, we're just going to have a callback that returns undefined. And then what we'll do is we'll get one of our wrappers. And then, so when we go ahead and display our text, we'll say our wild enemy monster appeared. And instead of waiting for the delayed call, what we'll do is we're just going to copy this. We'll get rid of our delayed call, and we'll go ahead and paste that. All right, and then we'll want to go ahead and make a similar update to our player monster. So what we'll do is we'll have our health bar appear. So we'll have our monster appear. Then we'll do for our health bar, what we'll do is we're just going to have a callback that returns undefined. And then let's go ahead and get one of our wrappers. And then that way we should do our animation and our text animation at the same time. And so if we go ahead and save and test our changes, come over to our browser, let's go ahead and refresh. And then what we should see is now we get our monsters appearing in the health bar and in the text at the same time. So it looks really smooth. And then so what we should have is our player, we'd have our health bar, and then we still have that small delay, so it gives the player some time to read the text. All right, and so one more thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and come up to our player and enemy attacks, and we're just going to modify our delayed call that we initially had. So originally we had this set longer because we were going to have some of our animations, but now that they're actually there, we don't need this to be as long. So we're just going to bump both of these from 1200 to 500 milliseconds. All right, so now we wrapped up the logic tied to our monster animations. That actually brings this video to an end. In our next video, we're going to work on adding in some support for skipping our battle animations. So then that way, while we're testing, it'll make it easier to test certain changes so we don't have to go through our full battle flow over and over again. And what's nice about this is it'll actually tie into our functionality we'll do later in our options scene. So we'll have options to allow a player to skip battle animations, and we'll be able to connect those two pieces of logic together. So as a reminder, there is a link in the description of the video to the complete source code for this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did enjoy the video, please consider liking the video and hitting the bell icon to be notified when the next video in the series is released. And for more Refactor 3 content, please see some links on your screen now.